Welcome back to the Fans of the Home Team podcast.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Miranda. This is a podcast that talks about the fun, the drama, and the effects that sports teams and athletes bring to the world, whether good or bad.
This is a podcast for the people who care about sports in a deeper way than who won or who lost. It's for the people who love the feel-good stories behind teams and athletes and realize that sports are more than a game.
Today's episode is an annual one. We hope everyone's been enjoying the holidays, surrounded by their loved ones, and we know that you've obviously missed us and our lovely voices, but it's crazy to think that 2023 is right around the corner. So it means that it's that time of year for our annual best and worst sports moments. Last year we did top 5, bottom 5, but this year we shortened it to top 3, bottom 3, just to allow us more time to dive into all of these lovely stories.
Great stories. And we like to take this episode to reflect on the year in sports and talk about the highs, the lows. So I have my 3 best and 3 worst moments, and then Miranda has her own moments. So we're really getting into our thoughts here.
Yes, it's a very reflective episode.
Very.
I feel like this sports year, we were like briefly talking about this, and I was like, I feel like nothing happened. And then Kelsey was like, what about this and this and this? And I was like, okay, JK. Maybe it was just a chaotic sports year.
Super chaotic. Lots of things happened. I almost said 2 of my things right now.
I just feel like it's so hard to reflect on the year because that first half of the year is so far gone. Like, I forget everything that happened between January and June.
January to June was a different lifetime than July to December.
Yeah, it's just very different. And I knew most of like what my worst and top were going to be, but I was struggling with a final top moment. So I went on ESPN's and they always do top moment, a whole reflection of the 2022 year. And I definitely recommend checking it out. It was super cool and interactive, and they do pop-up questions and stuff and videos. But some of the stuff, because it obviously started at January, I was like, this didn't happen this year.
It's just too long ago. It was like 10 years ago, not 1.
No. But lots of things jam-packed into this year, like we said. Last year, we did our worst moments first and ended on a positive note with our top moments. But this year, we're going to switch it up, and we're going to start with our top moments and then end with our worst moments, just to allow people with some reflection and ways we can improve as we head into 2023. So let's start with our top sports moments of the year.
We'll leave you depressed at the end instead of the beginning this year.
It's fine.
It's fine. My first top sports moments of 2022 is the Beijing Winter Games, which doesn't feel like it happened this year.
No.
But I love the Olympics. I'm a big fan of the winter because of hockey and snowboarding and all the snow events. But this was a fun one because this was the end of the Shaun White era, so it was cool to see him go out. He didn't win a medal in his final run, but it was so cool to kind of see his competitive story both start when we were younger and now end now that we're old ladies. So it's kind of cool. And then one of my favorite moments from it was they did the first mixed team snowboarding event. So they had a female and a male athlete competing, and the United States won with Lindsay Jacobellis and then Nick Baumgartner. Their combined age was 76. Like, these people are old. They're both older than us. And
good for them.
I know. And they won. So that was super neat. The women's hockey team got silver. So big fan of that. But good USA success. Great Olympics, Winter Olympics back from the Panini. So I loved it.
Yeah, I am so bad. I did not pay attention to the hobby.
You're sick.
What?
You're sick. You're un-American. It comes around once every 2 years. It's amazing.
I used to be like such a big fan of the Olympics, and as I've gotten older, I'm just like, whatever. I don't know.
Who are you?
I'm just not patriotic anymore.
Not patriotic. Hates one of the biggest sporting events of all time.
That's not the Olympics. I think the Olympics are great. It's super cool. The U.S. always does really well. And I love the stories that come out of it. But I just don't spend time watching. anything I consume about the Olympics is usually through social media. Like, I'm not watching on my TV or anything like that.
But when the Olympics comes on, everything else is done.
Oh my God, that's a lot of commitment.
I know, God bless America, right?
Sure.
USA. USA.
Sure.
Sure. But no, it's fun. I'm looking forward to the 2024 games. I'm super excited when it comes to LA in 2028. One of my goals is to be there with the Fans of the Home Team podcast. Miranda will have to care about the Olympics in 6 years.
I do. I enjoy watching, and I always have enjoyed watching the Summer Olympics more. I think it's partially because when we were kids, obviously it's in the summer and we weren't at school. So we had more time to watch and pay attention. And I feel like we grew up in an era where the Summer Olympics was huge, like especially for the Americas with Shawn Johnson, Nastia Liukin on the gymnastics team, Michael Phelps, Ryan Lochte, all of those people, the swimmers, diving. I don't know. I feel like there was a lot more coverage of the Summer Olympics, so that's what I just watched more. And then the Winter Olympics, I always enjoyed hockey, but now the NHL players aren't in it, so I don't watch as much besides the women's hockey team.
That's a whole nother story about the NHL. I think the summer, I don't know, there's more sports. They just drag more individual stories out of, like you said, swimming and diving and gymnastics. But I do get tired of watching swimming all the time. And I'm like, I can't swim. So I just can't relate to this.
I can't relate to them either, and I can swim.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. I just think that the Winter Olympics, there's more variety of things on during prime time.
I enjoyed the Winter Olympics, like I said, hockey, figure skating. We used to watch speed skating a lot.
Yes.
And what's it called? The curling and like the bobsled and stuff like that, and skiing. But yeah, my mom actually gave birth to me during ice skating during the Winter Olympics. Like that's what they were watching on TV before she went into labor.
But you're not an ice skater?
No.
Oh, it seems like a missed opportunity. But okay.
Yeah. No.
Living in Florida.
I mean, I know how to ice ski. I just like could never be like.
I can't skate.
Really?
I can't do a lot of things, apparently. No, I can't. I can't skate.
You're on a roller skate?
I don't know. It's been a minute.
Oh. How do you not know?
You've watched me ice skate. I had the little walker.
Oh, yes, I have. Yeah, you had the walker.
It hurts my ankles. I can't handle it. It's too much for me.
I think it's fun. But anyways,
next.
One of my top sports moments of 2022 is college football as a whole. I think this season was some of the best college football in recent years, where it's not all the same players. And by players, I mean teams. Obviously, you have the big names and big teams involved, but I think there was more diversity this year, which I always enjoy because I get sick and tired of watching like Alabama or Ohio State over and over and over and over and over again. So I just think this year was a lot of fun in that sense, but also I just feel like I think there's always excitement around college football, but I just feel like this year there was like a lot more hype and there were so many breakout stars, and I just love all the storylines that come out of college football. So I really enjoyed college football this year, and specifically because obviously I'm an FSU fan. So I was expecting not the best college football season, and the fact that we ended up ranked 13, which I was telling Kelsey before this, is the first time we've been ranked that high since before I graduated in 2016. So I'm just excited for the future of FSU football. Pretty much everyone on the team is coming back for 2023, so I'm excited for next season too. And I just think it's the first time I actually have like hope, whereas that happened in recent years. And one of the most exciting college football games I got to watch was the first game of the season, FSU and LSU. So I think it just started off with a bang and it just kept being amazing. And the last game of the season against UF, we won, obviously, and then we got to storm the field, which I've never done before. Like, I never got to do that. So that's one of my top moments.
That's a good top moment. Florida State was a lot better than I thought they were going to be as well.
Me too.
I also enjoyed the college football season. Mine is still going on. So
yes, it is.
Go Blue.
We'll see what happens.
We beat Ohio State again, which is
Mm.
always the highlight. Alabama's not in it. They were garbage. So that was cool. It was a good season. It definitely made an argument for expanding to the 12-team playoff because I think this would have been a really good year for it to be a
Yeah.
12-team playoff because there's so many great teams to watch. So I'm glad it's coming in 2024. So we'll see what happens. But I'm just blessed that Michigan is in the top 4 again, and we won't be playing Georgia in the first round.
Yeah, that's nice.
Probably the second, but it's cool.
Probably in the championship game, but we're fine.
So we'll see what happens. She had a lot of fun this season. There was a lot of upsets this year. It was a very strange Heisman race this year,
Yeah.
for better or for worse. And then the whole transfer portal thing, to me, makes it more exciting. I know a lot of people don't like it and don't like the NIL stuff, but I enjoy it. It just adds another layer, and I think it makes it so more teams can be competitive rather than the same ones year after year.
FSU has already had some good pickups, so I'm excited to see. Like you said, I just think it allows for more teams to be more competitive, which makes college football more exciting. I just feel like there was more variety this year, and I look forward to hopefully seeing it in the next few years. And then, yeah, once it gets expanded in 2024, I think that'll be exciting to see how it shakes out and how it works out.
Check out 24/7's transfer portal rankings. You can check out who's number 1. It's Michigan because we're the best. And our coach understands NFL free agency, which is exactly what this is, to be honest. It's just with children. I think that we'll be super good in the NIL and transfer portal era. So things are going well for both of our teams, which is always great. We don't like to be terrible.
No. And we've talked about it before, but it's hard for me to pay attention to college football when my team isn't good.
I'm not the same as you.
I know we're different, but you grew up paying attention to college football
Yes.
where I really didn't. My dad was a Notre Dame fan, so like he would watch games now and then, but I really could care less about college football until I went to FSU and I was like, oh shit, this is awesome. So if FSU's not doing good, then I'm probably not paying attention.
Interesting. Yeah, that's how I feel about baseball. So if the Cubs are bad, I stop
Yeah,
caring about baseball. So I don't spend a lot of time on baseball. But we've had some great pickups this offseason. Signed Dansby the other day, Cody Bellinger as well. So I'm excited. I don't think it's enough, but we'll see what happens. That was off topic.
We're talking about transfer pickups. It relates. It's all connected here.
Yeah, college football is essentially professional sports now.
Yeah. Which I feel like we all knew. Like, we've all been saying that for years. It's now just more socially acceptable.
That's true. It's not illegal anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
We're sticking with college sports. My second best moment, we're going to women's college softball, which I'm a big fan of. The Oklahoma softball team went 59-3 in 2022.
Period.
Which you can argue is probably the most dominating season of college softball that we've ever seen. 40 of their 59 victories came from the run rule, leading by, I think, 8 runs after 5 innings. So they're just blowing teams out.
That's crazy.
It was unreal to watch. And they obviously won the College World Series because if you only lose 3 games a year, you're probably winning it all. But there's just not a lot of teams in any sport, professional or college, I feel like, that have just been so dominant for that amount of time. I mean, they play like 60 games all the way through, which is a lot different than playing 12 or 15 in a season. I think it's comparable to when Golden State went 72-10. They didn't win, obviously, because LeBron, but it's comparable to that season, but people just don't know about it because it's women's sports. And that's a whole thing. But
that's just a whole nother story for another day. No, I think that's awesome. I think that's really exciting. And even though people don't know about it / talk about it, I think there are people like us who care and talk about it and paid attention. And there's girls that look up to that and are like, oh, that's awesome. Like, that could be me. Or like young softball players look to that team and to the season as inspiration. So we love women's sports progressing.
There's this one athlete on the team, Jocelyn Allo, and she's from Hawaii. But like, I don't think I've ever seen a player so dominating in a sport like baseball or softball. She just finished her career. She had over 120 home runs. She had 34 home runs throughout the entire season. So like every other game, she's blast and a home run, which is unreal. So it was just cool to see. She was the big story of the team, and she got to play in front of her family. They had flew in from Hawaii, and so it was super neat, super heartfelt,
I
but
love that felt moment.
just a dominating performance by her in Oklahoma. So we love to see it. It would really suck to go up against a team like that, but it is what it
Yeah.
is for
Who
everyone
did they
else.
play in the final?
The very last game.
Yeah.
So the last one's like best of 3. They beat
Mhm.
Texas 16-1 and then 10-5.
Oh my god. Yeah, like absolute domination.
Yeah, like they absolutely crushed people. When you get to the World Series and you're crushing people, it's unreal.
I think that's awesome. And I think that really the only other women's college sports team that's always covered is the UConn women's basketball team. And obviously this year with them losing for like the first time in 12 years or something crazy like that, I think that it's always good to have. Like, I think women's college sports is always doing amazing things, but for some reason it takes something crazy like Oklahoma's season for them to actually be in the news.
I always forget about how women's college basketball is probably the sport that's dominated by the same teams year after year, more so than any other league
Yeah.
or sport. When you think about it, it is always the same 4 teams.
Consistently,
Need
which is
some-
interesting because I feel like people would make the argument that like, oh, that's why women's college basketball is boring. But yet the same shit happens in the NBA. But like, it's okay when the men do it, but the women,
Need some diversity in it.
Yeah, like, or even college football. Like, there's usually a domination of teams, and it's like, okay, this is just acceptable. But if it's women's college basketball, they're like, oh, this is boring. Like, make it make sense.
It'll be interesting to see if more colleges pour NIL money into women's sports and how that affects it as well.
I guess we'll see. Maybe that'll be something we talk about in 2023.
Stay tuned.
My second best moment in sports is like a mix of sports and social media. And it's just the NFL team's absolute domination of social media within this last season. Specifically thinking on TikTok, I have enjoyed their content so much from teams that I could literally care less about, or even some teams that I can't stand. I just think that they are one showing how social media and sports should be handled and done. And I've just learned so much about all of the players and the teams. And I love the TikTok videos where the social media person has a question. I saw one the other day and it was like, if you could only have potatoes one way for the rest of your life, what would you choose? I just think those are so fun. The Vikings have been doing a lot of word problems. So those have been interesting. I just think that this year I've noticed it the most that the NFL is just having a lot of fun with their social media. And I think that they have also been trolling other teams, and it gives the sport even more of a personality than it already did. And there's players like Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Joe Burrow. I liked them as players, but I didn't really know much else about them. And just seeing clips of them on the field or really seeing their personalities shine make me enjoy them as players even more. So that's just something from a consumer and a fan standpoint that I've enjoyed so much of like watching and listening to is just the breakout of the NFL teams on social media in this last season. And I think we've slowly seen it over the years, but I just feel like this year it's absolutely been dominating.
I think I sent you 2 New York Giants TikToks, honestly,
Yes.
this morning.
And I was cracking up, dying, laughing because it's like trolling the other team, trolling the announcers, but like having fun with it.
Yeah, the people running these accounts are professional content creators. They just happen to work in sports. So they absolutely have been crushing it. The Bengals are really good. At least the Vikings are. The New York Giants are apparently very good as well. They love to troll.
Obviously, I follow the Giants the most because it's my team. But when the Taylor Swift Midnights album came out and everyone was using that template, the Giants put our photo and the score in that midnight cover. They're definitely having fun with it and being relevant and trendy, which I always appreciate. but then just the layering of the content that really shows the player's personality and those hot mic moments. And even the one you sent me with Stephon Diggs giving that young boy a Christmas present after his dad. I am in love with that man. He is amazing. Obviously, I'm rooting for the Giants, but if we don't make it or we're out, whatever, I'm going Bills. And I love the relationship of Josh Allen, him. The one clip of them talking on the Thanksgiving game. And he's like, you don't even know what you've done for and he starts
Tears.
Can't. And we've talked about it before, but that's what's missing in a lot of sports leagues. The MLB is just personality and knowing the players. And I don't know. I just feel like the NFL, the teams, again, have done an amazing job this year of showing those even behind the scenes moments, which as a fan, I enjoy. And I think even as a casual fan, people enjoy that more.
The NFL definitely does the best job. Its teams do in terms of bringing content to relevant platforms like TikTok. So I hope other leagues start to do the same. But MLB, take note, as per usual, they won't. They'll probably hit up TikTok in 10 years.
MLB, when they post on TikTok, it's just hot mics of players on the field, which they've been doing that for years.
Decade.
That's not cool and unique anymore. Yeah, it's fun every once in a while, but that's all your content all the time. And it's just
one of my favorite NFL clips from this year was Jamar Chase for the Bengals was hurt, and two of his teammates were making fun of him for eating a hot dog. They're like, Jamar Chase eats glizzies.
It's good content, and I just enjoy it so much.
Same. My last moment happened yesterday, actually. It's the World Cup finale. It was the best one of all time, as everyone is saying. So basically the whole story is that Lionel Messi needs to cement himself as the greatest soccer player of all time. Argentina hasn't won a World Cup since 1986. This is his last World Cup. This is the moment that he has to step up and essentially take his crown. So long story short, he scores 2 goals. They go up 2-0, but by the end it's 3-3. They're going to penalty kicks. So them and France essentially end up going back and forth. France ends up missing 2 penalty kicks. Argentina ends up scoring 4. Messi scores one of those. And it's just this insane moment where, somebody, I guess, takes their rightful place at the top of the mountain and gets what he's been working for his entire life, what he's always been waiting for. And this first World Cup after COVID, obviously, is an awesome moment for the entire world to have. I think a lot of people, including myself, love the World Cup just because it brings so many different countries and people who love soccer together every 4 years. So it was a really cool moment to see him win that, and the whole world was watching.
I feel like that's a justified top moment.
Miranda didn't watch a second of the World Cup, but I usually bow out after the United States is gone because I just get mad that we're not in it anymore. But the United States had a pretty good World Cup run. They got out of the group stages. They're a super young team. We host in 2026 along with Canada and Mexico, a bunch of cities. Those players will all be in their prime. I'm excited to see what we're able to do when the World Cup is here. I hope to get to a game with fans of the home team. We'll see.
I think I'll pay attention in 2026. But the only player really that I've ever cared about in soccer is Lionel Messi, or the ones that I know in international soccer, or Cristiano Ronaldo. That's literally it. I don't pay attention to soccer. I never have. But like you said, that's a once in a lifetime story and sports moment that we'll probably never see again.
No, probably not. But I'm excited for the women's next year. Obviously, we're very used to our women being dominant. So I'm sure that'll be on our 2023 list. Hopefully us winning. If not, I'll be very sad. But
yeah, and I will be paying attention to that one.
I think in 2026, that's the year the men's team has to put on a really good performance because, it's going to be the most pivotal year for the growth of soccer in the United States moving forward. So, the future of the sport in this country essentially rests on what happens in 2026. Because if we come out and just suck, that's bad.
No pressure.
No pressure or anything, but put the ball in the net, bro.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool regardless because, and again, this is solely my bias coming in, but there'll be stadiums that we've seen before. It'll just be cool because it's oh, they're playing in LA or whatever.
Yeah, I forget all the cities.
I'm sure LA is one.
Philly, Chicago, I think Kansas City, Boston, New York.
Oh, let's go to Boston
Okay,
or New
cool.
York. I'm down.
Whatever works. We'll see
Either
what
of
happens.
them. And that would be cool. And this is like totally off topic, but even for the Olympics to cover and get fan stories, because it's like, I can appreciate from the Olympics and the World Cup that it's an even bigger fandom because it's also your nationality.
Right, there's a different layer to it. No one's arguing, within our country at least, about who to
So
root for, so it's different. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do enjoy those major sporting events because I feel like it unites our country for a few hours each day.
Something needs to, right?
Yeah, exactly. But again, I do think that's a top sports moment for 2022. And like you said, something we'll never see again. So, like, core memory. My last top sports moment, it hasn't even happened yet. It was the announcement of Rihanna at the Super Bowl, who she'll be the halftime performance. I cannot fucking wait for this. She could go on stage and not even do anything, and I'll be like, my life is made. I don't even care. But whenever she posted that photo of her hand, I knew immediately it was her hand holding the football with like the white background. I was not well. Rihanna's one of my favorite pop artists of all time. She hasn't released music in years. And people have said, like, where's your music? Where's your music? And again, she really doesn't have to because she has Fenty Beauty and Skin and just her Fenty line as a whole. I think she's a billionaire at this point. Or multi-millionaire. Fenty Beauty and Skin is the top beauty brand in the entire US, maybe even the world. But she doesn't really need to release music anymore is what a lot of people's argument is. But I'm hoping at the Super Bowl, maybe before or after, she'll be like, listen to my new album. I don't know, because she did post recently, like, in the studio, so, like, something has to be going on. But regardless, I can't wait. I'm hoping to see some Umbrella on stage. I need to see some Rain. I need to see some Rihanna iconic dance moves. I haven't been this excited for a halftime show in years. So I'm very much looking forward to this.
So for me, the halftime shows don't pertain to me at all, ever. Mostly. The two I remember the most are probably Katy Perry and Bruno Mars.
Katy Perry was iconic.
Left sharp. Exactly. This just isn't the type of music I listen to. Where's Kelly Clarkson? Where's Zac Efron? I'm just kidding.
Where's Troy Bolton?
Where's Troy
Where's
Bolton?
Aspen High School Musical? No, I agree. Kelly Clarkson deserves to be the halftime show. 100%.
I would piss myself and barf and vomit. Those are the same things.
I feel like it could happen in the next 10 years.
I agree. If it doesn't, it'll be a travesty to this country. But Rihanna's obviously a very well-deserving pick. I don't listen to her music, so I didn't scream or anything. But she's getting her moment that she very much deserves. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. I'm excited to see the halftime show. I always have a very open mind going in, so I'm ready to be entertained.
Yeah, me too. And I feel like in recent years, it's become a collaboration or this surprise artist comes out, this surprise artist comes out, which is cool and all. And sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's just disappointing. And I'm excited that it's Rihanna because I think she could stand on her own and do it herself. She reminds me of a Beyonce or Lady Gaga or Katy Perry, even though I think it was Beyonce and Coldplay, which was so random.
It was.
But again, I think that she's one of those artists that could hold her own and be super entertaining. And she's not so much in the spotlight anymore. So I think that's why it was even more of a holy shit moment. Because I don't remember the last time she's performed. It's been years since she released her last album.
The last female Super Bowl performer to go solo was Lady Gaga. And that was would have been 6 years ago when Rihanna goes live. But I hope, like Lady Gaga, Rihanna does something, because Lady Gaga jumped from the roof and then she released her tour tickets. So hopefully Rihanna is able to do something in terms of marketing or sales in that capacity, because that's what I would do if I was performing at the Super Bowl. I'm using it to my full advantage.
I'm just interested to see how it shakes out because Rihanna doesn't have to do that because she's not just a musical artist.
Right.
Whereas like Lady Gaga relies heavily on that revenue. I mean, she's become more of an actress now too. I just think it'll be a fun show and I hope that they shine the spotlight properly, and it's not like, oh, we're bringing out this person, like,
Yeah, I don't like when they do that.
no. And last year's halftime show was cool because it was Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Mary J. Blige. Like, that's all good and fun, but each of them maybe had a minute each total.
Mhm.
Like, you don't really get to highlight the full artist. And I always look forward to the halftime show, especially if the game is boring, which has happened sometimes. Then I'm like, okay, halftime show, we need to jazz it up. And also, if the commercials suck, which we've talked about in recent years,
Which
haven't
they
been
do.
yeah. So I'm hoping for a good halftime show. And I've been hoping, I know it will be a good halftime show. I know she'll live up to the hype. So that was one of my top moments because I live for a pop culture sports crossover. And I can't wait to see what comes of it.
Rihanna's not going to let us down. It's not going to be a bad halftime show. No shot. It's going to be good. You heard it here first. She'll crush it.
Duh.
Duh. All right. We're going to go into the worst sports moments of 2022. Some topics are lighthearted. There's some heavy topics in here, particular to misconduct, sexual assault allegations within the NFL. So this is the trigger warning. It's coming up right now.
Yeah, pretty much the next two
Like,
stories.
right now.
Yeah. If you don't want to listen to it, just scroll past these, even though I think you should, because I think it needs to be talked about. So my top worst moment, it's the whole Dan Snyder, Washington Commanders, NFL, I don't even know what to call it, shit show, I guess. There's not even proper adjectives to describe the mess that is going on. But basically, for those who don't know, Dan Snyder is the owner of the Washington Commanders. There have been lots of allegations against top-level execs at the Washington Commanders for just having an abusive work environment. And a lot of those include sexual assault allegations, those incidents being reported and nobody doing anything about it or trying to diminish those incidents or what those people were saying. Where this stands right now is the NFL ain't doing shit. And that's why, as much as I enjoy football so much, the league and Roger Goodell are absolute garbage. And there's a few incidents this year that the NFL could have been the example for not only sports leagues, but just humans in general, and they completely dropped the ball. And the NFL is basically siding with Dan Snyder and the top execs and the Washington Commanders. They're not pushing Dan Snyder out of ownership, even though, again, there's been multiple allegations, there's evidence, proof that this man knew about the toxic work environment and the sexual assault allegations that were going on, but yet tried to cover it up, or he claims that he had nothing to do with it, which is false. So basically, where it lays now is that Dan Schneider is trying to sell the Washington Commanders, but the thought is that no one will probably be able to live up. I think he wants like $1 billion, like something absolutely fucking ridiculous. And it's either that or I think the owners are going to meet again, potentially in the off season, to try to figure out what to do. I know some owners have said, I don't feel right pushing Dan Schneider out, blah, blah, blah. And they're basically trying to cover this whole conundrum up. And I think it's just very unfortunate and it's massive steps backwards. And I think that it just shows that there's serious issues, not only in the NFL, but in these organizations and just, I think, in the US, where it's an abuse of power. And the fact that the victims who have come forward and said different things are just not being heard or respected whatsoever.
I think it needs a 3/4 vote from other owners to out him. So that's like 24 people. They're never going to want to vote someone out because it opens the door for them to be voted out one day, is my opinion. Because the most outspoken owner is the Colts owner, Jim Irsay. He's been the most vocal about it. And he still said recently he's not ready to vote him out. So if he's not ready, no one's voting this guy out, which is sad. But I really wish he would sell the team because people who are fans of the NFL deserve for there to be owners that actually care about the team. And I think he's proved through this and through even the Sean Taylor memorial thing that came out like a few weeks ago, where they essentially just set up a mannequin to honor their most historic player ever who died. He doesn't care about this team at all. Commanders fans deserve better. I don't know how you could be a fan of this team after everything that's come out, but there are people who are, and I think they deserve a lot better of an owner than this guy because he's honestly been a shit show from day one. He's never been a good person. No one's ever said nice things about this man once. Like, it's time to go.
Yeah. And we both worked in sports organizations, and I can see how this could be an issue. And I think it also comes down to a lack of diversity because most of those high level execs and the owners of the NFL are white men. So obviously, they're not going to try to vote the other one out because, like you said, then they're scared that they're going to get voted out. But there's nobody that's speaking up. And there's a lack of, again, female representation when I feel like we can relate to these things more and offer a different perspective. But like when everyone in the room has the same ideologies and beliefs and values as you, of course, they're going to be like, yeah, we're on your side. Like nothing was wrong.
What if you were working there right now? No matter who you were, you're an entry level or you've been there for a couple years, salesperson, marketing, whatever. What would that be like? Working at this organization, because I guarantee it's not a good place to work at this current moment either. And I'm sure they're probably pretending it is, but I'm guessing this is probably a really toxic work environment just based on everything we've heard. I can't imagine accepting an offer to work here after knowing all you know. Like, then that's what it's like to work in sports. People will overlook things like this just to make $3 an hour. And it's unbelievable.
Because it's like, oh, everyone wants this job. Everyone wants to work in sports. This isn't a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, blah, 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 blah. And it's all the bullshit propaganda that they feed you. And they try to tell you this is your only chance when that's a lie. So now imagine having that mindset coming out of college, grad school, sports management major, whatever, and you're going to work for the Washington Commanders. And this fucked up shit happens to you. And you're either like, A, I can't speak out because like these are people in power and I'm going to be blackballed from sports and like never get this opportunity again. Or B, you speak out and then exactly that happens. Nothing, literally nothing, because it's these people who have been in these higher up positions who have all of the control.
Yeah, that's gross. I didn't even think about it that entirely deep, but
because even like thinking about when we were working for the Lightning, which is a fantastic organization.
Yeah, this did not happen there.
No. But I'm saying like where we were at working there, trying to make our way in sports, and something like this happened to us where it was a toxic work environment or there was abuse of power, this and that. Truthfully, I don't know if I would have done anything because I wanted to work there and be in that position so badly.
And I don't even know what would have happened.
Yeah.
I don't have any confidence that a sports team would do the right thing. So
yeah, or change. I just think it's a terrible sports moment. I think it damages sports as a whole. It damages the NFL. These stories, unfortunately, are never going to end because it's just the lack of clearly accountability or any sort of punishment or anything like that.
And I think it leads into our next moment so well.
It does.
Pretty much goes hand in hand, but it is the Deshaun Watson thing. I'm not going to get into what he did. If you have no clue what's happening with Deshaun Watson, you're under a rock.
Literally go and Google and get your fucking information.
I personally think this dude should not be in the NFL. And you can say a number of things. Now, I've heard it all like, oh, he hasn't been charged. This is impossible to criminally charge and prove someone has done this. But do I believe that 30 women came together to solely take down this one man who hasn't played a full season since 2018? No, I truly do not believe that. That's psychotic. And I know when they went and played Houston, his first game back, there were some of the women were in a box watching the game. And I heard the argument, why would they be there if he did that to them? Why wouldn't they never want to see him? I think that's the main argument that's coming out, to be like, oh, they're lying. But no one's in a position to decide what a victim wants to do in that exact moment when it comes to facing or being in the same place as their attacker. That's not our place. Maybe they want to make a statement, whatever it might be. I don't think that's hard evidence that they're lying. Third, he's not going to be in a program to get better, and the Browns aren't going to come out with statements saying he's progressing if there's nothing for him to progress from in terms of this situation. Clearly, something happened if he's progressing with his character, whatever it might be. So, to me, those are all signs that this actually happened. Whether it was one woman, whether it was 30 women, it doesn't matter. He should not be playing in the NFL. I understand he could never be criminally charged for most of these things, but he should not be playing in the NFL. This was another opportunity for the NFL to do something right, and 11 games not doing something right.
11 games and what, a $5 million fine? And how much money did he just get guaranteed? Yeah.
A buttload.
Yeah. I just think it showcases a larger issue within our society and within the US. And one woman speaking out should be enough, but there's literally 24 or however many.
Like 30, I don't know.
At this
Too many
point,
to count.
that should be plenty. There is a point in time where things aren't a fucking coincidence. In any regard, whether you're a woman or just a victim of sexual assault, this is not an easy thing to come out and speak about, especially against your attacker, because of how our society views sexual assault. And again, do your research on how this specific topic has been handled within the court system within the US. And it's absolutely atrocious. And this is why people don't come forward and talk about this stuff. And the fact that now you have somebody playing in the biggest sports league in the US and he's doing nothing. Like, again, okay, you were punished 11 games. Like, come on. $5 million, that's a drop in the bucket to that man. Whereas those women probably have a lifetime filled with trauma. So that does not equate to anything. And then you could have led by an example, and it just could have been so different. And it's so unfortunate that it's not. And the NFL's audience is how much men. They have a huge target market of it being men. And you're showing men that, like, this is okay. You're showing young men that this is okay. Like, oh, I'm literally watching this man who had sexual misconduct charges, and he's still a star quarterback in the NFL.
I cannot figure out how people are rooting for this team. I'm sorry. Like, I understand if it's been your lifelong team. I get all that. This, to me, if you have a mom, you have a wife, a daughter, a sister, a cousin, a friend,
Female friend,
a teacher,
anybody.
you know anybody, what are you doing? What are you saying to the women in your life that, oh, just because you can't prove that happened means it didn't happen and this dude should be able to do whatever he wants? That's what you're saying to those women. Find a new team. Grow up. I don't know what to say. I put something on my Instagram story a few weeks ago. I was like, do you like Deshaun Watson or do you hate Deshaun Watson? Literally every single person except for one dude said that they hated him. And a girl I went to high school with who I grew up in Ohio. So a lot of people were Browns fans. She was a really big Browns fan. She was like, I'm not watching this team until he's off this team. I'm like, I think that's the exact way to go about it if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. I don't know how you can do it. I think it's disgusting. It's sick. And I know if the Cowboys had picked him up, I would have been gone.
The Giants have made my team for my entire life. And if this happened to the Giants, I'm done. I would not root for that team or watch a single fucking down until he's off of my team. It's just absolutely inexcusable. And the argument that I didn't even know that was an argument, like, oh, the girls were in a box watching a game. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, that is not proof that they weren't sexually assaulted. It just goes into such a larger issue of how we view men and women in our society, and women's voices and thoughts and opinions and actions are always fucking questioned. But yet when men do something, it's just like, well, he's a guy, so it's okay. Like, that's not how it should be.
People are so predispositioned to be like, he wasn't proven guilty in a court of law, so he must not be guilty. And I understand that that's the way things work in America, because if it didn't, then people would be going to jail for things they didn't do all of the time. So I understand he's not going to get criminally charged. I understand why he can't get criminally charged, because there's no evidence. But there's also no evidence that he did not do it. So for you to say that you believe one man because he throws a football for your favorite team over 30 women you don't know, I think that says a lot about your character, in my opinion. And if all 30 women are lying and they can prove all 30 women are lying, then cool. Fuck me. I'm wrong. Throw them all in jail for life. I don't care. There's no way that's true.
Now these women from certain people are like, oh, they're crazy. They're trying to expose him, take his money. They're not getting anything. They're literally not getting anything. So it makes no sense why. And again, maybe there are cases where that's a thing, and that's unfortunate. But when there's cases of that, it doesn't account for everything. And nobody wants to go through this. Like, this is just a whole nother trauma in itself.
Plus, there's no other case you can look at in sports. What professional athlete of that caliber has ever went down for this? None. So the likelihood of it was impossible. As we saw, he didn't go down. And now all these women are getting is a bunch of shit from some ignorant men who think that the United States justice system is the end-all be-all of decisions.
This is enemy number one, the Cleveland Browns. And I will never be rooting for this team or supporting them.
I pretty much just extensively root against the Browns at this point.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like the NFL is being very intentional with his coverage too, because I have been seeing him anywhere, or even the Cleveland Browns as a whole anywhere. And I wonder why.
Shocking.
Disgusting. So there are two very unfortunate moments in the NFL. And I will continue to be watching these moments very closely. And I think the part that's the most sad again is that this is the biggest sports league in the US, and they could have really set an example for not only sports and sports organizations, but for the entire country. And instead, they're not doing shit.
Right. Gotta keep an eye out, I guess. See what happens next.
Always. And more lighthearted disappointments of 2022. I put for my number 2 moment is the New York Mets and the awful, minuscule postseason run that happened. The Mets were one of the top favorites to do it all this year, at least make it longer than what we did in the postseason. And they absolutely fumbled the bag. The Mets have one of the top salaries spent in the MLB. I think it's literally the Yankees, Dodgers, and the New York Mets. And we're super excited, obviously, with Steve Cohen. We have a billionaire as an owner, finally someone who can spend money, which they have been spending plenty of money in the offseason. But I just think it's so disappointing when your team gets so hyped up and you're like, yes, this is the year. And then they just absolutely fall apart in the postseason and quite literally don't do shit. So I feel like that's very valid for one of my worst sports moments, because I think we can all relate to thinking your team is going to go all the way and then just being a massive disappointment and big fat losers.
There's no salary cap. In baseball, you are purchasing a World Series. The more you spend, the more likely it is you win a World Series. So to spend the way you guys have and to perform at the end of the season that way, you're just throwing away money at that point. If the way you guys have spent this offseason, if you guys don't win 2023, I wouldn't know what to do. You're spending $50 million more than the Yankees. You're spending $80 million more than the Phillies. You're outpacing everybody by millions of dollars. The team's stacked. It's so much money.
It's insane. And again, the Yankees and Mets are in that top 3. And when's the last time either of them won a World Series?
There's obviously more to it than money. It's not strategic. It's just like, we're buying a World Series. We're buying players. Like,
this man is a multi-billionaire. And the Mets fans were super excited, including myself. Finally, someone who's going to spend on this team. That's awesome. This is it. So after all these years, just having the ups and mostly downs, we're like, this is it. Like, this man's going to buy us a championship. And then for it to turn out and end the 22 season in the way it did, it's just like, what the fuck?
I'm frustrated for different reasons because our owners refuse to spend the money to buy a World Series. We're spending $80 million so far as of 2023, which is significantly under what the Mets, the Yankees, or pretty much anyone else is spending. We're spending under the league average. It's the third biggest market in the country. If we were spending over $250 million, I'm going to expect a ring to come in. You're paying for something. But at that point, the blame's not on the owners in the Mets world. He's putting out the money. It's on the GM to get the right guys. It's on the coaches to get the best out of those guys. And if you're a person being paid that much money, you're going to need to perform and you're going to need to win. So yeah, I mean, you don't have an owner problem. I mean, everything else maybe, but you don't have an owner problem.
No, and I think that the owner and the front office was a big scapegoat for Mets fans for years, and understandably so. But like you said, that can't be it anymore. I'm interested to see, and I'm hopeful for 2023. But like you said, it doesn't happen. I don't know.
I have big hopes for the Mets in 2023. So we'll see what happens. We might be talking about them again next year.
Hopefully they're my top, though, not my worst.
I hope so. My next worst sports moment, I wouldn't say it's bad or I'm angry about it, but it was Coach K retiring. I'm not going to say, oh, this 80-year-old man shouldn't have retired, because he absolutely should retire.
Coach K, you've ruined my life.
You ruined my life. But it was the way that Coach K's team went out. Last year's Duke team was extremely talented, as every Duke team seems to be. So you're thinking, okay, it's his last year. He said it the year before. This is going to be my last year. It's kind of this unspoken thing that they should be winning the national championship game, right? And that wasn't the case. They were an incredibly disappointing final Coach K team, in my opinion. As someone that's watched Duke for a really long time, to lose in a Final Four defeat to your arch rival, UNC. In that game, I just remember it just felt like they didn't have the will to make it happen. So I remember being super mad at that team for that being his last moment as one of the greatest coaches anyone's ever going to see in their lifetime. For that to be his final moment, incredibly disappointing. So that's sad that that's the way his career will end.
I always enjoyed Coach K, and I think, like you said, he's one of the greatest coaches we'll see in our lifetime. It's an end to an era, especially at Duke basketball. And when there's ever a moment where a player, a coach, somebody very prolific in the sports world announces their retirement, you hope for that season to be their best season yet, pretty much. And when it ends in disappointment, it puts not a bad taste in your mouth, but it's just like unfortunate. And you kind of feel for the guy.
A Duke team does shoot 60% from the free throw line and 25% from the 3-point line is so unlike them, though. And they had a lottery pick kid leading the way for that team. That team was so talented. I just kind of felt like they could never put it all together. And they made a really good run at the end. I truly, like, watching them throughout the season, I was like, this team is going to lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament. They had pissed me off so much throughout the year. So to make it to the Final Four, so I'm believing again. I'm like, yeah, they're going to do it. And to lose like that, I'm just like, I hate these kids.
I hate these 18-year-olds.
Hate these kids that are 10 years younger than me.
I hate that.
But there's no next year. If you're a kid on that team, that's Coach K's final year, and that's how you go out. I don't know. How do you live with that for the rest of your life? I don't know.
How do you feel about yourself? Are you happy?
I feel bad. 1,200 wins. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I think he's okay. I would imagine if I was a coach for that long and have had so many highs, upon reflection, he's not thinking about his last season.
No, he won it all 5 times. Obviously, he's had some success. So
yeah, exactly.
All right. We got another retiree on the list.
Yeah. Which, again, I think it's just sad. And I think more so for the sports and for females in sports. But one of my low moments in sports for 2022 is Serena Williams retiring. I think as a woman who has always been passionate about sports and used to work in sports, she was always an athlete that I really looked up to. I would beg to place a bet on it that she's probably the most covered female athlete, because she was just constantly talked about for the entirety of her career in our life, as she deserved to, because she was absolutely dominating on the court. So I think it's just sad to see, again, a good player leave, not only for female representation and female athletes, but again, for the sport of tennis, because I would say I'm more of like casual tennis fan. I pay attention when it's the bigger tournaments and things like that and what the big names in the sports are doing. And without Serena Williams, I think it's a loss for the sport of tennis and just the coverage, at least within the US. I know it's a lot bigger in other countries and internationally, but I just remember when the news came out that she announced her retirement, I was so sad because, again, it's one of those athletes that we've watched our whole lives, and I've always enjoyed and looked up to and admired her as a female and a leader and advocate for women in sports. So I think it was definitely a sad day when she retired. But again, good for her. She's been doing it for a long time. She wants to spend time with her family, which she absolutely deserves. So yeah.
I'm interested to see where tennis pivots because she's the most covered female athlete. She's one of the most highest female tennis earners ever. She's probably worth more than any other female athlete we've ever seen or may ever see again. So how do you go on promoting the sport without her? I don't know.
I'm not sure. I'm sure when I was reading the article about both their retirements, there's a lot of young up and coming tennis players. One of them, I think he was 19 years old, which is just mind blowing to me because I'm 28 and I'm like, what? And he's just competing on the world stage like casual. So I think there's a lot of good up and coming players. And if they gain the popularity that players like Serena Williams and Roger Federer have, especially within the US. And I just have enjoyed watching Serena Williams absolutely dominate at her craft. And I think it's so cool to see an athlete who has trained and dedicated her entire life to a sport. And she was a huge success. I don't know if we will ever see athlete like dominate in tennis like she did, or even female athlete in general, because she's the most successful female athlete that I can think about that I've experienced watching.
I think that's a fair statement at this point in time. I think we're very lucky to have been able to see some of the athletes and coaches we have. So we'll see what the future holds. But I mean, it would take someone obviously insane to knock her off like the best female athlete mountain. All right, last topic, a little niche to Kelsey, but I think it poses a bigger issue overall. In October, Michigan and Michigan State played. They played at Michigan. I was at the game. Michigan won because we're better, and Michigan State is Garbo. Anyway, after the game, they go into the tunnel, and there's only one tunnel at Michigan Stadium, and usually the away team goes in first, and then Michigan will go in. But there's a kid on Michigan that always goes up first because he says bye to his dad. His dad's a truck driver because his dad's got to go after the game. So he goes in there, and I don't know what happens, but the cameras caught everything. But essentially, this kid starts getting beat up like 8v1 by Michigan State players. This one Michigan State player takes his helmet off, is like beating him down with it. There's charges filed. The kid with the helmet's probably going to prison for assault. It was really the worst post-game fight. I mean, it was an assault, so it was pretty bad. It was the worst thing I'd probably ever seen that happened after a game for the most part. The worst part of it, in my opinion, besides for a kid obviously getting assaulted, was the fact that State fans essentially were, and it goes back to sports fans being problematic, were essentially defending these kids, being like, Michigan must have said something, they must have deserved it, they must have started it. There's an issue when you have fans defending people for doing illegal things.
Yeah.
For doing illegal things just because they're an athlete of their favorite team. So that was probably the thing that was the worst about it, was them just defending these kids to the death, even though there's video footage exactly what happened of it. So, very bad.
When I read this sports moment, I almost put it on mine because it sparked whenever this past season was it this past season? Yes. When the Rangers and Lightning played each other in the playoffs, and whenever the Lightning were at MSG, and a fan literally, again, it's assault to put your hands on another person. They were leaving the game, and a Rangers fan knocked out a Lightning fan. Luckily, there are other Rangers fans around helping him, but there were also fans walking right past this man, literally unconscious on the floor. I'm sure he's getting charges pressed against him. He's never allowed back into MSG or any MSG related shows or nothing like that. He's banned for life, which good on MSG for doing the right thing. And those are fans on fans. In this case, obviously it's different because it's players beating up other players. But as you mentioned, like the most disappointing part is fans defending that action. And I'm sure there are Rangers fans who are defending this man too. I understand that there's such a level of passion when it comes to sports. And I think that only sports fans understand that level of passion. At the end of the day, we need to separate some things. And putting your hands on another human being, no matter what, is absolutely unacceptable. I understand in sports, you can get aggressive and yeah, I get pissed off watching my teams, or yes, I get pissed off at other fans, but I'm never going to go out of my way to hurt another human being, even if it's an opposing fan or an opposing player, because at the end of the day, we're all humans. You lost your game, bro. I'm sorry. Go in the tunnel and go to the locker room and get over it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times in terms of fans, they throw morality out the window when it comes to their favorite teams. And you have to realize this is still a human being doing something illegal or not right to another human being. And that's all it is. It doesn't matter who they play for or what team they're a part of. Just be a normal human being and say that assault is wrong and go about your day. And in this case, you can still be a Penn State fan and be like, yeah, that definitely was not right. Those kids should be suspended, whatever it might be. You're not a bad fan for saying somebody on your team did something wrong.
I totally get being super passionate about your team, but there, again, needs to be a level of respect. And I feel like some sports fans totally disagree with that. We need to separate sports and being a human, life in general. There's a lot more to it. And now, like you said, that kid is going to jail for assault.
Right.
For what?
Losing one of 7 games they lost this season because they're not fucking good.
Exactly. Sometimes people need to take a step back, take a deep breath.
Moral of the episode, be a good person. Sports are fun. Don't root for shitty people. Don't put your hands on people.
Yeah, exactly. I think talking about our worst moments, there's some reflection as we head into 2023.
Be good to each other. We all like sports. We don't all like the same teams.
That's literally the whole point of fans of the home team. We're all fans of our own team, and that's what makes sports beautiful.
And we don't punch each other.
No, we're cordial fans here.
The best fans listen to fans of the home team.
Exactly.
This was a great annual episode. Looking forward to it again next year. Hopefully there's not bad moments this upcoming year, but there will be, and we'll be here to talk about it. But thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Next week, to celebrate a new year, we're going to be sharing some goals for fans of the home team, behind the scenes, and what to expect in 2023. Most importantly, we're going to be talking about our vision boards.
Ooh, look at us. I can't wait. As always, check out our link tree, which you can find in the description of this episode. This is your one-stop shop for all of our social media accounts at Fans of the Home Team. And it's also where you can sign up to share your fandom story with us if you would like to be on the podcast.
And so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes, subscribe to us on whatever you're listening on: Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and more.
Thank you again, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.